Okay. If everybody can close, yeah. So today we'll be doing Image Daf Yud Amud Aleph, and I think before we start Daf Yud Amud Aleph, we should just recap a little bit from before and look at two diagrams on Daf Testament base in the Rashi. Basically, the Gemara on Daf Testament base was speaking about the chotzer ktana shenirfet soligdoila, a small chotzer where the wall dividing between the small chotzer and the big chotzer fell down, and it's very much worth it to look at the in Rashi. All the Gemaras should have it. In the Rashi, there's two diagrams of the chotzer gedola and the chotzer ktana. I would think so. It's all the Gemaras, certainly my Gemara. Now, if we look in the Rashi in the chotzer gedola and the chotzer ktana, so there are a few possibilities of the chotzer gedola chotzer ktana. Rashi only has one of the possibilities. I would just I'd like to mention another one and very briefly a third option. So put it this way, what we have in Rashi's diagrams, this for some reason in the Gemara which I have, and similar also in the Asphalt Gemara, there is two pictures of the chotzer ktana and the chotzer gedola, and in both those pictures we see they're both basically the same thing. There's a reason why they made the second picture, but whatever it is, but basically they're both the same thing. That there is the walls of the chotzer ktana, the smaller chotzer, are protruding into the chotzer gedola. The other point to mention is that it's centered. The chotzer ktana, by the way, the diagrams are not to scale. The reason why they're not to scale is because it says in the Gemara that the chotzer ktana is 10 amas, and the opening is 10 amas, and the chotzer gedola is 11 amas long. So it's quite obviously not to scale. Certainly not in my Rashi, maybe in an Artspro Rashi, but in my Rashi, certainly it's not to scale. But let's ignore that. But what you do have is, like I mentioned before, that the walls of the chotzer ktana are protruding into the chotzer gedola, and also that the chotzer ktana is centered. Now, the reason why the walls are protruding into the chotzer gedola, because they needed that for one of the terutzim, the Gemara, they needed that, whatever. Also, there is another possibility in the Gemara which says that the chotzer ktana is not centered. So there was one teretz in the Gemara which said chotzer ktana is centered, and another teretz said it was not centered. It was more closer to one side than the other. I think I probably will not want to go into the details of that. But what I think I do need to mention is that there is another possibility, and that was the original understanding of the Mishnah, and of that Mishnah. The original understanding of the Mishnah is just like we have that picture, except that those pieces of wall which are protruding in the chotzer gedola are not there. So that is the original understanding of the Mishnah, without what you have in both pictures, the pieces which are protruding from the chotzer ktana and chotzer gedola. The initial understanding of the Mishnah is simple: chotzer ktana broken open into chotzer gedola, no pieces protruding. Just as a reminder, so we are talking about the Mishnah speaks about the dinning of carrying, because when you have a chotzer ktana and that's a chotzer gedola, two chatzeres which are open to each other, which are open to each other, then you need to have an eruv, because since they're open to each other, so there's a mixture of two chatzeres, since it's a mixture of two chatzeres, so then you cannot carry in any, even if you only carry in this in one of the chatzeres, you cannot carry that unless you make the area with the other chatzer. That's normally. But in this situation, the Mishnah is saying that the chotzer gdola is permitted to carry without a the chotzer gdola is permitted to carry without an Erev, and the chotzer ketana will not be permitted to carry if no Erev has been made between the two chatzeres. The reason being, because if we look at the picture and try to ignore the the pieces which are protruding from the chotzer ketana into chotzer gdola, just or remove them in our minds, remove those pieces which are protruding. So we will see that the chotzer gdola has actually four mechitzas. There's four sides. Okay, one of the walls on the one of the side, the one which is close to chotzer ketana, is broken open. Fine, it's fallen down. That's fine. But since, like I said, it's the maximum size of that opening is 10 amas, or actually, yeah. So the maximum size of the opening is 10 amas. So therefore, it's 10 amas is still considered a Pesach. So therefore, as far as the chotzer gdola is concerned, it has four mechitzas, and you have a piece of the piece of the wall till the break, and then another from the other side. You also have a piece of the wall till the break. So these are the this is part of the mechitza, and then you have a Pesach. So it's a Pesach with the two pieces at the side, and therefore it's recognizable as a Pesach. And a Pesach is just as fine as a mechitza. You have a mechitza, you have a Pesach there, that's fine. So therefore, as far as the chotzer is concerned, it has four mechitzas. Okay, part of it is a Pesach, and you can carry the chotzer gdola. Chotzer ketana does not have a Pesach. Since the chotzer ketana does not have a Pesach, so therefore the chotzer ketana will not be able to carry, because there's no post, there's nothing to suggest that Pesach. So you need to have the two posts or one post, whatever it is. There should be some posts at least to it should be able to be counted as a Pesach, and therefore there's no posts over there. So therefore the chotzer ketana is bottled to the chotzer gdola, and it's considered mixed, and you cannot carry that. There's no Pesach for the chotzer ketana. Okay, so that was that Mishnah. Now the main subject of discussion is what happens if you have a lechi which can be seen from the inside and not the outside. That's the main subject of discussion. So let's go back. The way I understand it is, if we have a movui, we're switching a little bit from a movui to a chotzer, but the concept seems to be transferable, even though there are slight differences in halacha in the two. But this concept seems to be transferable. So let's we're talking about a lechi which can be seen from the outside, and which can be seen from the outside and not from the inside. Okay. Now, the way I understand it is a lechi. A lechi is, there's two reasons for a lechi. There's different opinions what they are. Either it's because it's considered a heker, or because the lechi is considered a mechitza. It's either a lechi, it's either a mechitza, or it's because of a heker. Now, the lechi, one has to ignore about the lechi what material is made out of. So because the lechi can be made out of any material. So since intrinsically the lechi can be made of any material, we can't say, oh, it's made of this material that shows it's different, it shows it's a lechi. That is not showing of a lechi, because lechi can be made of any material. So therefore it can be made of the same material of which the wall against which it stands is made out of. So it's made of the same material. So the lechi has to be a piece which is sticking out, which is visible, that it's an extra piece. So this lechi has to be visibly an extra piece, and you see it as an addition to the wall. So when you look at the lechi, you have to see the lechi as an addition to the wall. So if the lechi is on the now mavoi, let's go back. The mavoi has walls, right? The mavoi has a back wall. It has two side walls. The mavoi, fine. So the mavoi has two side walls. Now, if we take a lechi and we stick it onto the inside of the side wall towards the entrance, the inside of the side wall of the mavoi, so then people who are in the mavoi can see that there is a bit of a thickness of something has been added, stick or brick or whatever. Something has been added to serve as a lechi. Therefore, it will be a heker or it will be a mechitza. So the first thing is, if you take something and you a stick or a piece of brick, and which is the right size, and you stick it against the inside wall of the mavoi. So therefore, people on the inside, they're standing, they're looking towards the Rosh Hashanah. They standing looking towards them, they'll see, hey, there's a piece of a stick out there. So it'll be serve as a heker, and if necessary, it serves as a mechitza. And therefore, that will be good lechi. Then you have another way of making that lechi, that we can actually make the lechi on the face of the wall of the mov. The mov is the face of the wall. Sorry, on the part of the wall which is facing the Rosh Hashanah, not which is facing the inside of the mov. I can stick that lechi onto the part of the wall which is facing the Rosh Hashanah. So we have the mov ends, the wall of the mov ends, and the mov ends. Right, the mov ends. It's fine. And then we stick a lechi onto the face of the wall, which is pointing to, which is into the Rosh Hashanah, which is fine because it's a heker. Okay, the people inside Mavoi will not see that heker because they don't see an extra piece sticking out. They don't see an extra piece sticking out. But the people who are in the street will see it's an extra piece sticking out, and therefore it's obviously that stick which you've stuck on is not going to be the same thickness as the thickness of the wall. Because if it's the same thickness of the walls, then it doesn't look like it looks like the wall has been extended. But if the thickness of the piece of brick or stick or whatever it is that you stick onto the face of the wall, which is facing into the street, so people from the street can see a lechi, and people from inside can't. Now, this is the question. This is the machloikas. We had the machloikas over here. Does this nira bebachutz, can that be counted as a mechitza or as a heker or whatever it is? Because it's a heker for people outside. Is that sufficient? So let's and if it counts as a mechitza, it's fine. So if it counts as a mechitza, so can you imagine? So it's counted as if the whole. It's because this is where the ends of the mavi ends and the Rosh Hashanah begins. So if you have a mechitza, that is amazing. But the question is, since it cannot be seen inside, does that they don't see the extra piece sticking out inside, even so? Then that's not considered that's not considered a kosher lech. That's machlokes. The very last we had from Rabbi Yochanan said it's not considered a kosher lechi. That was Rabbi Yochanan, and then Rabbi Chia said it is considered a kosher lechi, and then we had Rabbi bar Rav Huna that it's considered a kosher lechi. So Rabbi bar Rav Huna said it is considered a kosher lechi. We tried to prove that we tried to prove so what is the concept? The concept is the question. What's the question? If you see from the outside and not from inside the rishos, you see from outside the rishos and not from inside the rishos, is that enough to be considered the mechitza? And that directly connects to the Mishnah of Chotzik Doil and Chotzik Kana. Let's go back to the Mishnah at the bottom of Rashi on Daf Tes on the base. So the Mishnah of Chotzik Doil and Chotzik Kana So so the chotzik tana we said is not you're not permitted to carry the chotzik tana. Now there the question is that einochanami, that if you're standing in the chotzik tana, there's no mechitza on one side. There's absolutely no mechitza. You're standing inside the chotzik tana. But if you're standing in the chotzik doila, which is outside the chotzik tana, you do see a mechitza, just like the person in the chotzik doila. For him, there's a mechitza there because he sees two sides, the posts and the sides. He sees all these things, and he sees the two sides, and therefore it's considered like a pesach. So this pesach, if we ignore for a second the protrusions, yeah. But if we say there's no protrusions there, so this is also the same situation like in the Mavli, that the inside the chotzik tana, you don't see the posts, you don't see it, doesn't see like a pesach, it's broken, you don't see two sides, and then therefore it makes it a pesach. But from the outside, you do see that the chotzik tana has a pesach, because there you see two posts, you see from the outside. So the Gemara wanted to prove that we see from the chotzik doila, the chotzik tana, the fact that the chotzik tana is you're not permitted to carry, that if you see mibachutz, that doesn't help. Wherever you see, whether it's for lechi, whether it's for the pesach and the chotzik, seeing mibachutz does not help. That was the Gemara was proving from the design of the two chetzeres without the protrusions. The Gemara answered that, and the Gemara said, that's where the protrusions come in. The protrusions, they come in with, that answers the Gemara. So I don't want to go into how the Gemara answers this question. Sorry, the question was that we see, of the opinion of Rabbi Ravuna. Rabbi Ravuna said it's kosher if you see from the outside, you don't see from the inside. By the Mishnah of chotzik doila, chotzik tana, you see, even on the outside you do see a pesach, in the inside you don't see a pesach. It doesn't count. It doesn't count, and it's not kosher. So seeing from the outside is not sufficient. You have to see it from inside the rishus. And that was the kasha on Rabbi Bar Huna, who paskened that it is kosher. You see from the outside. We coming back. The Gemara gave a teretz, and that's where the protrusions come into that. We're going to go there. The Gemara now, in two lines, from 2 lines. The end of the second line of Daf Yud Amud Aleph wants to prove that it can't be talking about protrusions and all the stuff which was said before. It must be talking about. Without protrusions, and it's centered exactly without protrusions, and you are able to prove. The Gemara says you are able to prove from this Mishnah against Rabbi Bar Huna. Sorry, it's not a Mishnah; it's a brisa. Saying Mishnah the whole time. It's not a Mishnah; it's a brisa. Yeah. So from this brisa, you are able to prove against. You're able to vote against Rabbi Bar Huna. I'll say it inside. And one second. The basis how we will prove it will be based on something which Rav Adar Baravimi said in front of Rav Chanina, that actually when you're learning this brisa, the small chotzer is 10 amas, and the large chotzer is 11 amas. And because if we're medayek that the large chotzer is, so it's interesting that Rav Adar Baravimi, he said that the small chotzer is 10 amas and the large chotzer is 11 amas. Why is it important for Rav Adar Baravimi to give these measurements? And who cares if it's not 11 amas, if it's 12 amas, if it's 13 amas? And what happens if it's not exact? Why is it necessary to give the exact measurements of the two chetzeres? And if we're medayek in that will prove that we're talking about the only way to understand, the only way to explain the diuk of 10 and 11 is if we do away with all these protrusions and any other terutzim, and we're going to have to learn it like we originally learned. That's talking about without protrusions, and to prove that the MS that this Brisa holds that the Brisa holds that if it's nirim b'chutz, yes, it's nirim b'chutz, but it's just not good enough. It's nirim b'chutz, that's not good enough. Okay, that I think I've used up all my time. I just don't know what to say. I try to make it in an explanatory way. Okay, let's see. Then let me try and do the Gemara as fast as I'm able to. So Gemara says, "Hi, my. How does these terutzim work? If you'll say nir b'chutz v'shovim b'fnim ein nid mishum lechi. If you say the fact that it's nir, if we even though you see outside, but as long as you don't see inside, you don't see the posts, the lechi, so that it doesn't count. It's not kosher. And then the Rabbi sova lo Rabbi Yosi, and you'll add because the only way to understand the Mishnah that the measurements of 10 and 9, of 10 and 12 are 10 and 11, 10 and 11 are meduyak is only if we hold all these shittas. So what's the first shitta is, like I mentioned before, that the seeing the mechitz on the outside does not help to make it kosher. That's why you cannot carry in the inside chotzer. And the Rabbi sover el Rabbi Yosi, and also you will say that Rabbi holds like Rabbi Yosi that the posts have to be at least by in a chotzer, not in a mavi, but in a chotzer. The posts on both sides have to be at least 3 tvachim each, at least 3 tvachim each. That's the minimum size. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yosi. V'derab Zeira, v'derabina lesser, basically means the two terutzim which you gave and made different scenarios. You made these the protrusions. You just ignore that. And is then if we learn that and that we prove Rabbi Bar Huna wrong, then we understand why the measurements have to be given as the small one 10 and the big one 11. So therefore, then we can understand that the small one is 10 because that's the maximum size of Pesach is 10. So therefore, that the 10 is so therefore it's for the big one. It's still considered a Pesach, and you'll have to carry that. And the measurement for the G'dayla is going to be 11. Why is why do we say the measurement for the G'dayla 11? The Rebbe is Savalok Rabbi Yosi, because you need to have a minimum of 11. Because if that's 10, the big one must be at least 11. Because you need to have, you split it must be centered. The chotzer, make the smallest amount. The smallest amount that the big chotzer can be is 11. That's the smallest amount. Because then you'll center it. You'll center the thing. Because according to Rabbi, we need to have, just a reminder, we need in a chotzer to have 2 posts. The Rabbi said you need 2 posts. So you need 2 posts. So we're going to center this. If you center it, then you'll have the minimum amount of 3 tvachim for each one. Because he holds a Rabbi Yosi, I said 3 tvachim. So 3 tvachim on this side, 3 tvachim on this side. So therefore, at least we have to have, it should be 1 amma in total, 1 amma bigger. So then we understand. So then we understand why we gave this number of Eser and Achadasar. But if you'll say that if you see on the outside, even though you can't see on the inside, it is considered a lechi, and you'll explain away why it's considered lechi, and you'll explain away that this Mishnah, the reason why it's not effective for the small chotzer is because you have all these stories of the Reb Zera and Ravina, there's protrusions and all this stuff with Reb Zera, Ravina Issa. So if that's the case, so then there's no need. It doesn't make a difference. You don't need to have these exact measurements. The Rabbi and also that the Rabbi does not hold the Rabbi Yosi. If you'll say that Rabbi does not interested in each one of the sides being 3 tvachim, because not everybody agrees that the 3 sides be tvachim. If you say the Rabbi does not hold the Rabbi Yosi, so if you say he holds like Reb Zera, or he holds like Rabina, or you say that he doesn't hold the Rabbi Yosi, if any of these 3 items, then so why did you give the measurement of the big one being 11? The monashik. If to allow to carry in the gdoila, so you don't need the chadasrei. If you have that's two tfachim, the big one can be two tfachim more than the small one. The big chotzer can be two tfachim more than the small one. Have one tefach on each side is good, or two tfachim on one side is good enough. If he doesn't hold the Rabbi Yossi, or even if you hold the Rabbi Yossi and you hold that if you see on the outside, it's okay. If it, yeah. So it's because so then you don't so why so as a b'shtei tefachim 10 and 2 tefachim is enough. That's if you want to say that if you say, for instance, you don't hold the Rabbi, so you don't need 3 tefachim on each side. So the ilam misr liktana kosi, and if the reason is because you want to make the small one aser lashmin oskos lashminon, the miflige tuva. So if it's to say that the reason is because you want to tell me that the small one is aser, that is the chiddush. So then even if it's much more, even if it's much more than 11, it doesn't have to. Why say 11? 11, 12, 13? It's always aser. Why do you? What point is there in pointing out 11? If you're saying 11, you must be saying there's something special what happens at 11. You're saying, so what's special? According to Rabbi Yossi, you understand? You're saying there's 11, and if it's a bit more than 11, then if it's a bit less than 11, then it's not kosher, because you don't have 3 tefachim. So so therefore we see that that if it's seen on the outside, and but if you don't see in the inside, it's not counted as a lechi. So the only way to explain that, that we need to have these exact measurements is because we hold that to tell us that we need to have 3. The only way why we need the measurements is because we hold like Rabbi Yossi, and therefore we need to have 3 tefachim on each side. And otherwise, if you don't have 3 tefachim on each side, even the big one, you will not be able to carry. Just 1 minute, please. Okay, I think I'll just continue. Omer Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef said, 1 second. I did not hear this din. You are saying that this is a kasha, this is a stir. You're saying that from this brisa we have a contradiction against Rabbi Ravuna. The Rabbi Ravuna said that we see from the outside it's counted as a lechi, and you ask me a stir from the brisa against Rabbi Ravuna. The brisa we see that it's not kosher if you see the outside. It's not kosher. You see the outside, and according to Rabbi Ravuna, it is kosher, even if you see only the outside, not the inside. I never heard I never heard this thing that he said it's kosher even. I never heard that Rabbi Ravuna said that it's kosher if you see only the outside. Abai said, you told us. When he became older, he became blind, he was ill, so he forgot his learning. So he says, you told us. But you told us that he says that it's kosher even if you see only from the outside. And you told us about this thing. What's the story? The Omer Rabbi Baravona, Rabbi Amma said the name Hamoishech. So it didn't actually specifically say that. It didn't say that. It wasn't a quote from the words of Rav Huna, But he said a certain halacha, and from that halacha we you actually inferred from that halacha, which he said that he holds that as long as you see from the outside, it's kosher enough. What's the story? So if you have a lechi, which you stick on the inside of the mower, you stuck this lechi, but it was less than Dalad Amas. If it's less than Dalad Amas, so say that as long as you put a bit of how do you call these 8x4s or whatever you call them, these sheets of wood. You put a sheet of wood, it could be 8x4 or whatever, 8 foot by 4 foot. So you put one of these sheets, you stick it up against the wall of the mobile. So the 8x4 foot is, so you stick it up with the 8 foot on top, and the 4 foot is going to be the width. So it's less than 4 amas. So it's a kosher lechi. But you can only carry until the inner edge. In other words, so it's an 8x4, so only you can carry until the 8x4 begins. A board. You put a board, an 8x4 board. So you can only daladanas, but if it's the board is more than the 8x4, it's like an 8x8 or something, which is more than that. That's more than the daladamas or more. So it's daladamas or more. At the moment it's 8. So then is nidam shumovi. So then the board itself, the place where the board is, if it's like daladamas, which is about 6 foot, so it's about 6 foot or more. So then nidam shumovi, that will be counted as a movi. Quite frankly, if I gave the marshal of the 8x4, so it depends. If the 8x4 is standing up and the 8 foot upwards, that will be counted as a lech. You take the same board and place it the other way, and you know, it should be 8 foot running on the ground, 8 foot, just 4 foot tall. So then that will be counted as a movi. But also you can't carry the whole movi. So that was the din of Rabbi. The At Amos, when he told us Allah, Shmamina, we see from this din of Rabbuna, we see plus 3 things. Shmamina bein lechin also. First of all, you see that the opinion of Rabbuna is that you're not allowed to carry this in where the lechi is. The space of the lechi we're not allowed to carry. We had a machlekes about that in the previous pages, where you're allowed to carry in the place of the movi, in the place of the lechi. Sorry. So you're not allowed to carry on the place where the lechi is, because even when it is counted from the lechi, he said you can only carry up to the lechi. Okay, we see meshach movi of arba amas, and we see that a movi is as arba amas, because the reason when it loses the din of lechi and it's considered the movi is when it's arba amas. So you see the length of the minimum length of the movi is arba amas. We also see that I didn't say it initially, but when you put that board, surely you put it as you would normally put it. And normally we discussed yesterday already, the way you put it is it's a bit sticking out in the street, So what do we? But the inside is not, because the inside it's a 6 foot that looks like a mobi. So it's nirim bachutz. On the outside, you look from the street side, you see pieces protruding, but inside there's a whole 6 foot where you see no protrusion. And so therefore, nirim bachutz, it's only recognized on the outside. The nidim mishum lechi, it is counted as a lechi, because you were talking about yes, there's this lesson for amas, that thing. So it's kosher. Sorry. Nirim bachutz shalom b'fnim nidim mishum lechi. Something is wrong. Sorry. He didn't put what's it called? He did not put. I said he put a board. He did not put a board. He just extended the wall. Hamoshech im dafni. He extended the wall. He extended the wall. He did not. It's not a board. A board is near b'fnim. Sorry, I made a mistake. So if you put a board there, then the board the board is what's it called? The board is near b'fnim because you see where the board sticks out and in the inside. See, sorry, I made a mistake. So he took the wall and the wall just continued further. So it's a small movie, obviously. It's a small movie, which is it's about Dalet or less. So so if the movie is Dalet, the wall is extending and extended a bit to the outside. So the wall extends a bit to the outside. Right. So as the wall is sticking out to the outside, so if you look at it from the outside, you see a bit of a protrusion. So you see so it's right. The kitzer. So therefore, and from that you learned out that he holds that even as long as you see from the outside, as long as the outside is recognizable as a piece or the wall is sticking out, it's not the whole. It cannot be the whole thickness of the wall. A bit of the wall, like it made some of the wall, extended some of the wall. So it's the wall. It's extending. So it's flush. It's flush. The whole wall is flush. But of course, the thickness of the wall in the front, looking from the street, it's not going to be taking up the whole thickness of the wall. So and that's nirim bachutz. So nirim bachutz from bifnim is nidm shum lechitz. It's counterclockwise. Okay. So we have justified the fact that Rabbi Bar Huna, we have said that Rabbi Bar Huna said it's kosher if you have nirim bachutz, and even though Rabbi Yossi couldn't remember, Abaye reminded him. But we had this kasha from the Brisa that from the Brisa we proved that nirim bachutz is not kosher, and Rabbi Bar Huna said it is kosher. And the Gemara finalizes and says, "Tiyuf to bilchasa." Sorry, sorry. Yeah. Right. So that's so when it says that's the opinion of Ram Bar Abuna. The Gemara finalizes so the halacha is it's nidm mishum lechi. So the Gemara just doesn't understand what's happening here. We just said Rabbi Bar Abuna, yes, true. Rabbi Bar Abuna held it is a good lechi. But the whole thing is we had this question, and at the beginning of this page, we justify the question that there is no way to understand the Brisa unless it's contrary to Rabbi Ravuna. So we prove from the Brisa contrary to Ravuna because that the measurements are only important if we don't hold of that. Only then the measurements are doing. If we don't hold of Rabbi Ravuna, so we prove that if you see only from the outside, it's not a good lech. So how do you go against the Brisa and you hold like Rabbi Ravuna? So the Gemara says, "Tiyuf to bilchasa." The Gemara says, "And should the Tani Rabbi Chika say, yeah, but there's another Brisa. Rabbi Chia, he was saying a Brisa. So since Rabbi Chia, his Brisa is like Rabbi Ravuna, even though we have the other Brisa, so we follow the Brisa of Rabbi Chia, and if you see only from the outside, it's really kosher." Okay, I'll try. Maybe this will take only very few minutes. I'll see. I'm at Abaye. Tanya we learned. This is now going back to Mishnah. I think we a little bit we're going out of the pictures scenario. So not so important the pictures now. I think. So we said that if the movie is wider than 10 amas, then you have to you can't just make a lechi oker. You have to make the walls closer. If it's more, it's a pirza. If it's more than 10 amas, it's a pirza, and therefore you cannot use a movie. Sorry, a kaira or a lechi is not sufficient. So v'rochem be'ekem sa'amas says our Mishnah you might. Rabbi Yehuda says ain't a tzarich. You don't remind. Like he argues on the height, and he also argues on the width of the opening. We did have Rab who had a different gersa in Yehuda, but that's not this. This is the Gemara now goes according to the regular gersa. So va'ad kama. So how according to Yehuda, what size can the opening be that it's still kosher to use a mobile lechi? So Sova Rav Acha Kamed Rav Yosef. Rav Acha wanted to say, An Shalish Esram B'Shlish. He says, you know what? 13 and a third amas. What's the cheshbon of 13 and a third amas? Okay, basically we had in the base of Mikdash, we had the people came to Yerushalayim and they would come with their animals and stuff. People would come to be alila regel. Lots of people. The kitzer, you would need to have boirus of water. So there were boirus of water, of which the public can use when they come to do alila regel in Yerushalayim. They would have they would have water from wet drink. Now a boir, both boirus are deep. So a boir is b'derech klal 10 tefachim, and therefore, so you cannot carry out from 10 tefachim onto the you cannot carry out from 10 tefachim onto the street, because the boir is a yeshus yachid. So if you come, you want to drink something, so you want to take the cup or you want to draw water. It's a bucket of water. You want to draw the bucket of water on Shabbos. You want to draw the bucket of water from the boir, and you want to drink or give it to your animal. You can't put it on the side of the boir, because the side of the boir is going to be a Shus Rabbi Carmelis, and over there it's a Shus Rabbi, and there the boir itself is Shus Yom. It came from Shus Yom into Shus Rabbi. So in order to make it easier for the people who are regel, so the Chachamim said, you know what? Let's make 4 mechitzas to this boir. How do you make 4 mechitzas? They would take let's say 8 posts of a tefach. So you take 8 posts. Let's say 2 by 4 is a tefach, yeah. So you take 8 of them. 2 by 4 is a bit more than a tefach. Okay, so or 1 by 4, whatever it is, take 1 by 4. So it's a tefach, and you would make that in a L shape. You take 2 of them, stick them together in an L shape. Taking 2 things which are wide a tefach, you make it in an L shape. 2 beams which are you make an L shape, and you stand it up. You stand up the 2 beams on the 4 corners of the boir. A bit of a distance. Give yourself some distance around the boir, and make an area. And the area you'll put in on each corner, you'll put in this L shape, which is each side of the L shape is a tefach. So each side of the L shape is a tefach, and that tefach for one side and tefach on the other side will be considered the mechitza. So it means if you're looking at this thing, you can go in, it's quite open. You can go with your animals to drink. And this whole area, which is covered by these 8 posts, which have been made into 4 L shapes, so those, since they're tefach each, so each, and there are the 4 corners. That means there's like it's like psachim or whatever, and you're allowed. So it's like 4 mechitzas. It's as if there's 4 mechitzas there. There's 4 mechitzas there. Come in with the animals, and then you're able to draw the water and put it on the floor over there. Because it's within 4 mechitzas, the openings there which we allowed was the size to bring in 8 animals. So 2 sets of 4 animals. So 2 sets of 4 animals. Now the size of an animal is, I don't know, 1 2/3, the average size, whatever it is. The Chachamim, they estimated the size of the animal as 1 2/3 amma. So it's 1 2/3 amma. So 8 animals, you bring them in a row. The kids are 13 1/3 ammas. So the Chachamim said, okay, we're allowing few people. You'd have multiple sets of people coming in, with their animals, and the kid. So there's enough space for 8 animals. There's enough space for 8 animals. So 13 1/3, 8 times 1 2/3 is 13 1/3. So 13 1/3 ammas, the space of 13 ammas, that's good enough. So the space of 13 1/3 ammas, that is good enough, and the mechitzas work. Any more, it will not be kosher. So that's how we got the measurement of 13 1/3 ammas between between these posts, L-shaped posts. Right. So that's the din where, when it came to the thing the Chachamim made in order to be able to do a regal, the Chachamim made you to give you this leniency to be able to make such a distance between the posts, such an opening of that size. So that's what he thought. The Rebbe Huda, he disagrees with that. Say that. So what? We have it's the next size, the next size up, which we have in this halacha of the pasei birois. That's what they call. Kalvachayim pasei birois. The kalvachayim pasei birois. Ma pasei birois. Shehisra shisreis sheitarta. Sorry, sheitarta behem parts merubal. We have a cloud that by mechitzas, if it's parts merubal by the mobi, which is parts merubal aimet, the mechitzas are no good. If you have the opening is more than, if you have psachim and all that, if you have the opening is more than it's broken more than what's standing there, parts merubal aimet, that is not kosher for a mobi. So, but the pasamirois, it's parts merubal aimet. Just have these four posts of these four L shapes at the corners. So it's parts merubal aimet. We don't care. So we're matter parts merubal aimet. So okay, even though we're being very lenient over there, but we gave the maximum leniency as a distance between the posts being 13 and a third. Mobui were more strict. For sure, you cannot be more lenient. So even Rabbi Yehuda is being lenient, but surely he cannot be more lenient by Mobui than in the case of the wells, and therefore, so if it doesn't agree with 10, he cannot go beyond the maximum size of which we found by those wells. He can't be more lenient than that because the Mobui, we see halachas Mobui are stricter than halachas over there because Chomor more machmer. So therefore the maximum size possible according to Buddha is 13 and a third. But the Hyanis, so the Gemara says, no, the Gemara says that there actually is no raya from over there, and that's the Gemara finishes off with that there's no raya, there's no proof. The Gemara doesn't give it actually an extra. What's the next size? I don't think so. There's no. Yeah. The Gemara says Gemara says says the Gemara says no. There you can't learn from, you can't compare it. Pasibirois she talked about parts of Rubal Imad late tate behem yeser mishalish am mishalish esrei ames v'shlish. Movish late tate behem parts of Rubal Imad tate behem yeser mishalish. Says the reason why we're so strict. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda holds a bigger size. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda holds a bigger size. But the reason why we are so strict that we only give you like the size of 8 animals. Listen, we're making such a heter. Parts of we should usually answer. So parts, okay, the Chachamim were, so to speak, the mevater on the parts of Rubal but at least it should be shloisha sa'amah b'shlish. But in a place where it's not parts of Rubal no, so then we can have a bigger size. So if you're strict in one thing, it allows you to be more lenient in another thing. Right. Yeah. So that's the first thing. So the first response, one reason why you cannot learn it out is because, on the contrary, because we're machmer in other things, we can make it in this size and the size of the open. Inami, the idrgis, or the other way around. That's you can't make the kalachemer anyway. You can't make the kalachemer because that cannot be the reason Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, okay, we see Rabbi Yehuda holds more than 10. But the reason cannot be to do with the kalachemer because the kalachemer doesn't work. So now we're saying that you cannot use the kalachemer to allow you even up to 13 and a third. Because you cannot use a kalachemer because pasbiro is that kilo b'chad kula. Sick pasbiro is the reason because of ways that the simchas haregel and people should be able to come and all this. So they were make over there. So the reason why they allowed up to 13 and a third is because the necessity. So Chacham saw in that situation they should be makel. So if that situation the makel, Taka, you see the makel by parts and they don't care about it, and they don't. Therefore, they allow you up to so much because that you have to be makel over that. But Mavui klala. But how can you make a kavachem from Mavui? Mavui goes the regular dinner. No kulas by Mavui. Mapitom. How do you get the kulas by Mavui? Why should they make kulas by Mavui? There, because of the need, wherever is make kulas. We're not reading the kids. So therefore, it cannot be that Rabbi Huda used the kavachem to get a leniency. If wherever we got leniency from, it's not from there. Okay, I'll just finish off. Tony Levi said, "Movish rochav asim amma." Why am it's okay? Now it's not because the maximum size of the opening for Movi is 10 amas. So why am if it's 20 amas? No, it's konabem to usivadaya. So you put a stick in the middle. So you took now you have two entrances of 10. It's 20 amas too big? Put a stick in the middle. So who Tony Love, who Amala, the Ein Allah. So this is a Bryce which he was saying. It says Tony Levi. He said a Bryce. He repeated the Bryce. So the Bryce says you put a stick in there and now you have two entrances. It's amazing. So it says the halach is not like that mission. Because if you have two large spaces like that, the corner doesn't count for anything. You cannot do that. The corner becomes bottled. The gap is such a big opening. So and therefore it's not kosher. You could amri on Shmuel Mishmei Levi that Levim's Enoch is a Mishnah. That Shmuel said in the name of Levi that Allah is not the Mishnah. So the kid said that Allah is not like that Mishnah. So so what do you do, Taka, when you have such a big opening? So on Shmuel Mishmei Levi, so Shmuel said the name of Levi is Pas Gavei Asor Meshach Arba Amas. You take an 8x4 and take an 8x4 like the board of sheet before, and then put it down over there and hammer it in or whatever it is, nail it in, and then if the 8x4, if it's 8 foot or even if it's 6 foot only, if it's 6 foot deep into the mavoi, so now you have two mavois. When you put in a whole, not just a corner, a small stick, just put a stick there. No, you have to make. You put in a whole thing which is counted the mavoi, like we said before. The sheish amas is counted like a mavoi. You put that, then then you're able to split it, and it becomes two entrances.